There was a young monk, an acolyte, a seeker after enlightenment, who went to his master and asked, "Master, what is the nature of Zen?" "Wait," said the master. "There will be an opportune moment." Sometime later, the master went out into the garden and found the young monk sweeping the path, using a straw broom, just sweeping all of the debris into a pile, putting it into a bag to be disposed of. The master came over to the young monk and took the broom from his hand and laid it aside, and then very carefully bent down and with great attention removed all the fern fronds and the leaves from the path, and carefully took them over to the fruit trees, and carefully and lovingly laid them around the bottom of the fruit trees to conceive the moisture and to keep out the elements. The master then bent down and carefully, with great attention, removed all the little twigs from the pathway and put them aside to be kindling to cook the rice pot. And then bending down to take all the little pieces of moss, which he carefully placed around the fish pond. And then the little clods of earth, mud, which he carefully placed in the little crevices where the grass needed to grow. Only the dust remained, and taking the broom, he swept up the dust and gathered it together, and took it and spread it around on the freshly turned vegetable garden bed. The master then said to the young monk, "This is the nature of Zen." Then there's another great Buddhist master who loved orchids. Every day he went out to his orchid garden, which was layered in tiers. Every pot containing a beautiful bloom was tended with absolute love and attention. All the dead flowers and leaves were removed. There was no little piece of detritus anywhere in this orchid garden. But one day, the master was called away to give a lecture tour. He had to leave his orchids in the care of one of the young monks. Every day the young monk went in to tend the garden. But one day, accidentally, he knocked one of the pots of orchids, and it was like a domino. All of the orchid pots on their tiers came crashing to the ground, smashing the pots, leaving the orchid spread across the pavement. The young student was devastated. What would his master do to him when he returned? He was full of fear and terror, the scoldings, the beatings. But when the master returned, and with great trepidation, the student showed him what had occurred in the garden, the master turned to the student and said, "I did not cultivate these orchids to become angry. I did not cultivate these orchids to achieve perfection. I cultivated these orchids because..." We leave this story unfinished for the moment. But lastly, there's a story about an Indian man who was a potter. But he was also a great follower and devotee of the god Shiva, the great Shiva, the creator and destroyer. Every day when he formed his pots, he prayed that each pot would be perfect, and he importuned Shiva to give him the ability to make this pot the very best pot it could be. Besides that, he gave all his devotion to Shiva, following all the rituals that were required of his faith to appease, to placate, to invoke. One day, the great god Shiva, so impressed by this man's devotion, came to him and told him that he was worthy to receive a boon, any wish that he would desire. Well, the potter was a very humble man. He didn't want wealth, fame. He asked the god, "Please, will you enable me to make pots that are perfect? Perfect pots." Well, with a rather enigmatic smile, the god Shiva granted this wish. The next pots that the potter made, he dropped. It didn't break. He took it out and smashed it against a wall. It wasn't even scratched. From that moment on, every pot that the potter made was perfect. Everyone came from near and far, because soon the word spread that this potter's pots were unbreakable, indestructible. His business boomed. He could have increased his prices greatly, but he was a humble man and kept his prices the way they were, even though his business was flourishing. But then he found out that the potters in all the other towns around him were going out of business. They didn't have any custom. They grew poor, and pretty soon his own customers dried up, because the pots that he had made were so perfect. Before very long, there was no need for anyone to buy pots, not even from him. And so his business was no more, and he lamented to the God, "Oh God, why did I create this wish?" And the god Shiva took pity on him, came down and asked him. And the potter told him. So Shiva said that he would withdraw this wish. And the god Shiva also said, "It is well that you now understand, Lord. That is, how do these stories relate? How would we complete that sentence by the Master when he says, "I didn't create these orchids, cultivate these orchids to attain perfection or to get angry. I cultivated these orchids because..." And in this last story, it is well that you understand the nature of life. That is, if we complete this sentence and also that of the god Shiva, and we put them together, what do we find? What arises for us as an understanding when we ourselves, by the nature of life, have striven to be the best that we can be, to achieve that image of perfection, and yet found, for whatever reason, that it hasn't been fulfilled. How do they go together? What do they create? The Master, cultivating his orchids, his love for orchids, every day. Because in the nature of the law of life, perfection, impermanence, impermanence, impermanence. But then we have these little Zen stories. The Zen master picking up every little, placing it carefully in another aspect of life. Right down to the last dust on my pavement. How do they go together for us? This impermanence. And say.
It brings everything back to this moment where of total perfection.
Yes.
There's
what does it bring us down to in these moments of life? And completion. Having the need to complete every task that we do and are given. Finished. Isn't it so? No unfinished business. Every encounter we have with anyone we have. You don't say, oh, I won't say that to them now, I'll say that next time you meet them. They might be dead, you might be dead. We don't do it. We say it in that instant, don't we? No? Words before, oh, I better do. Or maybe. Wasn't it? What is it about us now? Doesn't allow it. Presence. Impermanence. But in that presence, how does that equate with this perfection when, in fact, or is it? What is it?
It's sort of, the Zen of it is really seeing the perfection in the moment, perceiving it, and acting on what is perceived. Like the monk, the acolyte, was sweeping everything up as one without the attention to detail that the Zen master had, and as such the Zen master could experience a much deeper, or have a deeper experience of that perfection.
He doesn't even perceive his being in the moment. I mean, he doesn't perceive anything. He's here and in that. Everything happens like perfect. You know, when you say it, there's no more duality in that. So there's no future. There's nothing more than that. There's only one. It really cancels everything else. There's nothing more, nothing else. I wish I would be here.
You are here. Nowhere else you can be. Where do you think is somewhere else?
It's interesting that the pots were actually less perfect when they were perfect.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Causing all sorts of problems.
Exactly. And the perfection of the pots was in their imperfection.
Yeah.
It was in their imperfection.
And that, yeah.
Because it allowed the whole cycle to continue.
To continue. So how do we relate that to our lives when we beat ourselves up?
And when we wish something, we have no idea about what we create.
What we create. Yes, indeed.
It's sort of, to me, it also relates back to the story from last Sunday with King Solomon, because I thought a lot about that, and that's very relevant to my life at the moment. Life will unfold in its timing, as it is the right in that moment to unfold, and nature and life will reveal itself as the bee flew into the flower.
Absolutely.
And to me that's settling back into the moment, and the words that came to me that you said then were that King Solomon was humble and patient.
Yes.
You need the word honouring comes up.
Yes.
It's like honouring.
Yes.
Being in that awareness and honouring the awareness without thinking any of those things, but just being in that
It's
state
as a
of
natural.
honouring
It's a natural part of
what is.
what's in. Yes, and this is what we come to have awareness of. in those moments. Just like we're in this still moment, we're aware of the movement of life in whatever form it's occurring. And as such, we give honor to it and reverence to it.
Good reminder too, because it feels like the speed of things. I know for myself I seem to be accomplishing less in the scheme of things, but it seems busier. So
Absolutely is. Absolutely is.
good reminder to keep that presence.
Yes. That's so challenging, isn't it? Thank you for this.